I'm gonna take us back a couple of years. And I want you guys to imagine this hot summer's afternoon. Hot summer's afternoon. And I'm lying in bed with my partner. And I'll be honest with you, we're naked. Yeah. And it's a little sweaty. We're a little out of breath. Because we fucked. We were lying in bed, having just had a moment together, and it was our first time being together in what had been a month-long separation. You see, things weren't going well between us. There was some trouble in the relationship, and we decided that we were going to go for the Ross and Rachel approach, which we're all familiar with. We went on a bit of a break, and it was a long month. It was a hard month, but when I was back in that bed with my partner, and I was looking at him, and he was looking at me, I realized that this was something worth fighting for. And I knew at that moment, we were gonna fix it. So I'm ready to start having that conversation. And I say to him, tell me what happened over the previous month. And he's honest with me. He says that he's been doing some partying, that he's been traveling around Europe, and he's been sleeping around Europe. But all of this is fine, because he said to me that he found the missing piece, which is going to fix a relationship. So I look at him, and I say, just tell me what it is already. Like, I'm ready. I want to hear it. Let's go. Let's fix this. We're going to do it. And he looks at me. He says, Phil, you know what our relationship really needs? Let's not be monogamous anymore. So, this is a gay relationship. And this isn't the first time. Amazing. This is the first time that we have. This isn't the first time we've had this conversation. This conversation's come up many times in the past. And to tell you a little bit about myself, I'm the kind of guy who likes to swim around the monogamish pool, and he was the kind of guy who wanted to, dive into something a little bit deeper, a little bit more open. But when you're with somebody for a long time, you find a way to build compromises and to make it work. And I think we had our ways of making sure that, we got what we wanted from the relationship. The thing is now, as he's having this conversation, he's changed his tactic a little bit. So he's not saying, I want to be in an open relationship. He's actually saying that he is himself polyamorous. That he's always felt this way, he just didn't know how to tell me. But guys, I know I seem a bit traditional maybe in my views, but if this is what he's saying is going to make a relationship work, then I'm ready. I'm going to give it a shot. There's just one thing, and it's this little thought that's scratching in the back of my head. And it kind of bubbles up and it becomes its own question. And so I say to him, like, hey man, I love you, let's do this. But before we do anything, I gotta ask one question. Had anything happened outside of our relationship while we were together? So he looks at me and he goes, Phil, come on. When I'm at the club and you're not there, well, there's gonna be a little bit of kissing. But gray zone, right? Monogamy-ish, gray zone, it's fine, it's okay. But was there anything else? Phil says again, come on. Well, maybe there's a little bit of touching too. Okay, a little bit of touching, but touching where? Touching how exactly? Guys, it's only over the pants. But sometimes under the pants as well. Okay, so we got a little bit of kissing, we got a little bit of touching, but that's where it ends, right? Right? Well, sometimes he lets people give him head. And I think you guys are starting to see a pattern here, as I did as well at that time. And I feel like there's only kind of like one question I can ask to kind of really understand the full situation of what had happened. So I say to him, but do you reciprocate? Yeah, Phil, I do. It's only fair. So it's a hot summer's afternoon, and I'm lying in bed with my partner. And at this stage, I don't know what he expects of me. Perhaps now that I've kind of pulled on the thread enough, and I've brought up that truth that I kind of was afraid to hear, that would be the straw that broke the camel's back. That, it's my time to leave him, to pack up my stuff and move back to Canada. Hang out with Nickelback and Justin Trudeau. But honestly, I'm lying in bed with this guy, he's looking at me, I'm looking at him, and I still think this is something worth fighting for. So I'm gonna fix it. So I start doing some research. And I go on Spotify, and I listen to podcasts. I listen to these podcasts by Generation Zers who are telling me like how cool and how open a relationship is. Like they're 17 and they know more about love than I do. And then I start going on. I start going on YouTube. I start going to like TED Talks, and I'm introduced to this lady called Estelle Perel. Yeah. And I listen to so much Estelle Perel that her Belgian accent still like echoes in my head to this day. And then, I started going through blog posts. I'm going through blog post after blog post after blog post. I ended up in 2006 Tumblr, trying to find an answer to figure out how I'm going to start this conversation. But every time I start to try to have this conversation, he looks at me and says, "Why do you think I have all the answers?" But that's not what I'm trying to do, right? I think that if you have a relationship and you're going to change the structure of it, you need to have some kind of boundary, some kind of conversation, some kind of foundation to build things up. But he would say, "I don't know, Phil, just change the subject already." Yeah, excuse me? Change the subject? Change the subject! But you know what? That's what I did. I changed the subject and I said goodbye to the last 4 years of my life. And it hurt. And quite frankly, I was sad. Pretty desperately sad, as I saw my entire life become nothing but a pile of cardboard boxes and a single bed. But as I started to go through that process, as I started to go through that pain, I began to seek out the friends who were there to support me. And after 4 years in Amsterdam, I was amazed by the friends that I had, and I began to talk to my family. I have family here. I talked to my aunt, who said to me, "You're doing so much for him, but what is he doing for you at this stage?" And thank you, Aunt Sandra, because you were right. So I kept going. I kept going to new spaces. I started to find new dance floors where I could feel sexy in a way that I didn't feel sexy for a very long time. And I began to find bigger communities, more queer communities, who were opening themselves up and helping me feel welcome. And in 2020, in the midst of a pandemic, if you guys can remember, I bought a home for myself. Wow. So, I remember when I said to him that I never want to see you again. I wasn't mad when I said it, I promise. Even though I knew that in some way, in his imagination, somewhere down the line, we could be friends again. That we could, on a sunny Sunday, go have a beer and laugh like we used to. And it actually sounds quite nice. But I can't. I really can't. Because I'm still trying to fix it, even though I already have. Thank you.
What does it give you sharing your personal story on stage?
I think it's interesting because I think we all feel pain on a very individual level. And it's only kind of through storytelling that we suddenly hear people like, I'm listening to you as much as you're listening to me. And I can hear that, if I get up here and I can share the story, then you might relate to it in a way that helps you deal with it as well. Mm-hmm. So I think the sharing of pain is something that's really, really beautiful. And I think using comedy as a little blanket to help us get through that pain is also really, really beautiful.
Yeah.
Amen.